Try to excuse the mess, but it is 7 in the morning and I'm packing the last things I need for my shoot. One thing you'll notice that's a little different from my usual pack is I actually have the FX3 top handle on. I never really use it. A lot of the gigs that I have are either camera only, not really requiring sound, or I'm a second shooter and sound is not super important. But for this, it will be a talking head interview and B-roll shoot. So I'm packing the XLR top handle so I can get phantom power my shotgun mic, and my pack is a little differently because this is requiring a 2-camera interview setup. So I've actually packed a few extra things in here that I normally don't. I have a Sony A1 here as my backup cam, and I'm actually bringing a small HD 502 bright. I love this monitor. I can't justify bringing it on like a wedding or anything like that because it's just more weight and other batteries to worry about. But for this, definitely want to get some false color going, make sure my exposure is good. And I even have this little piece here. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but it's like an Arca Swiss to 15mm rod base plate. And you guys may or may not have seen it, but I love using the Falcam F38 plate because there's an adapter that I have that can go from, camera backpack clip to tripod to Ronin S gimbal really, really quick. And I basically do not need to do any rebalancing. And it's also Arca Swiss compatible. So I have this, so this will be my Arca Swiss base plate. I've got the 15mm rods right there, and I've got the Nitsi V-mount battery plate as well. Got a couple V-mounts going. It's kind of organized, but I'm also trying to stuff as many things as possible into one tiny case. It's even to the point where like I even have to lightly press down to close these. Definitely pushing it a little bit, but nothing crazy. I have my list of interview questions because I'll also be doing the interview questions. And I'm also bringing my DJI RS2 for B-roll after the interview. So about to load up. Everything else is loaded up in the car and time to drive. This car is packed to the max. I've got a 600D over there, 300X. I've got the softbox. I've got sandbags. Definitely a bunch of shit packed into a small car. And even this case is heavier than usual. I need to figure out some sort of system or cart that could help me transport all this gear over, because otherwise it's gonna be a lot of back and forth movement, which I'm not looking forward to when unpacking and loading back up. But it's one of those things that has to be done.
For anyone who's curious, today the client is actually a YouTube channel who focuses on telling stories about war veterans. So they hired me to film a little bit of interview and B-roll work. And the contact that I spoke to said that if I do a good job, it turns out a lot of retired war veterans are here in Texas. So if I really do a good job at this, they'll probably hire me back for more work around the area, which is awesome. The company is actually based out of Arlington, Virginia, which for me is cool because I'm not actually from Texas. Originally, I'm from Northern Virginia, close to DC. Most of the agencies that I do work for are usually based out of California or based out of Texas, but this one was about 35 minutes away from where I used to live. So for me, it's pretty cool.
All right, just arrived at the location. This is where we'll be shooting. Honestly, the rest of it is not very exciting. Hopefully the inside looks a little better than the outside, but these things are. Sometimes you just gotta make it work. So I took one look in there. There's no windows, nothing super crazy. I probably do not need the 600D. It's probably a little overkill. Room's a little dark, but I'm shooting f2.8, got the FX3, low light. I'll bring the 600D out if I have to, but I think I'm just gonna put it back in the car because it's a little overkill for this job. Camera rig rig is complete. V-mount battery, top handle, the NATO rail extension for the small HD, and of course Sony updates it, so now it can't guarantee dummy battery, but it's fine. I've used dummy batteries before. This system should work just fine. Now it's time to find the frame.
As always, guys, whenever I start one of these interview shoots, finding the frame is the most important part that you can do for interviews, because it's where you know you're going to place your camera, it's where you know where you're going to place your lights, where you're going to key from, what else needs to be in the frame. And trust me, this room was not doing me any favors. Once I found the corner, I had to use these flags to cover up this Coors Light beer sign. So honestly, it was the best that I could come up with. Trust me, this room was not doing me any favors. And now I'm setting up my Sony A1 as the B cam on the 70-200. Roughly, I was at a 50 millimeter for the A cam, and I believe 100 millimeter for the B cam. Now I'm setting up my aperture 300x. Love this light. The 600D was just overkill. It was just way too much, and there was no windows at all here. So honestly, I wasn't having to compete with any light, and that's what makes me think, like, for shoots that don't have any sort of exterior or any sort of windows to compete with, an aperture 300x or a 300D is plenty of light. But yeah, I love this thing. It's bicolor. It's bright for what I need. Setting up my boom and hair light, and I even have my 5mm reflector as some negative fill.
This is a quick white balance card that you can just take out of the packaging, and there you go. So obviously I have a lot of mixed lighting here. I have my 300x here, but I can obviously change the color, temperature, but I just want to white balance off of this and see what needs to be changed. So I'm just gonna put it right there. Always keep a roll of gaff tape with you. You never know when you'll need it. All right, so I had to kind of pick and choose my battles when it came to the vlog, but my interview setup is all done. Got the 300x over there, 60x over there. This is kind of my frame. I kind of was aiming for these war memorabilia, and I put the flag over there just to kind of hide. There's like a core beer sign there, so yeah. All right.
So I'm going to try to do more of these if I can, but this is the final shot that I ended up going with for the interview. I think with the limited amount of space that I had, I think I did a pretty good job, showing like a nice headshot while also showing with the flag and the war memorabilia in the foreground, kind of like a leading line, just to show, hey, he's a war veteran. Trust me, this place did not look that great, and it smelled of cigarettes. But I think I did a pretty good job lighting this shot. If I could redo anything, the hair light was probably either not powerful enough, and I did have the Amaran 60X with a bare bulb. I think it was a little bit too shadowy. Like it was kind of more harsh than I wanted to. If I could have done it again, I probably would have used an Aperture MC for a softer hair light, but you know what? You live and you learn from these things. It was my first time using it as a hair light, and I probably should have tested it out before. But I think I did a pretty good job considering everything and considering the time I had to set up. And also, I was doing the interview questions. I normally do not ask the interview questions. Normally, there's a budget for somebody there to ask for me. But for this job, they really just wanted someone who could do it all. And even though I've never done it before, I kind of told myself, hey, you know what? It's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I am totally willing to do this. I have to give credit to Sony. All their Sony, like their new cameras, seem to match really well. The FX3 was an awesome killer A cam, and even the Sony A1 was doing a great job. I used the dual base ISO for the A1, which was ISO 4000, and with these tight shots, I didn't even need to shoot at f2.8. I actually shot at like f5, so it was actually a pretty good combo. They matched really well, and I think I did a pretty good job considering all the circumstances. And I did get an email from the client said that they got all the footage, it looked great. So hopefully in the next few months, they probably reach out to me again and I can do another gig for them because they seem to really like my work. Let me know what you guys think.
So one thing I need to learn about the Sony A1 is that it overheats. Granted, I think it was my mistake. Luckily, the camera told me when it stopped recording, but I had the screen pressed against it, and I guess like 30 minutes in, that's when it decided to just overheat on me. I heard the little beep that it stopped recording, and I was like, oh shit, let me check. And thankfully, since it's an overheating thing, when it did shut down, the file was already saved. I didn't have to recover it or anything like that. That could have been very disastrous. I need to remember to flip this screen out, okay, so that doesn't happen. Or, I mean, honestly, I am thinking about getting either another Sony FX3 or a Sony FX6 as my second B cam, because they have fans and something like this would not happen if an FX6. So yeah, good to know.
So I didn't have a lot of time with him to get B-roll. I kind of needed to knock it out in about 15 to 20 minutes. So I decided, you know what, let me get creative. Let me add some movement and just let me use the Ronin RS2. Love this gimbal to just get some great shots. And I got actually a really cool hero shot with it. So even though I hate gimbals, they do come in clutch sometimes.
So just wrapped all the B-roll and all the interview too. So now it's just packing things up. Came here at 9, ending at around 1:16. So about a half day's amount of work for a full day rate. So not too bad. I need a cart of some sort. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I don't care if it's just a very, very small cart, but I need something so I'm not going back in and out of the place a million times. Would really just love to pack in a cart, go in, and then pack everything back on the cart and then leave. Very inconvenient part. I need to figure out a solution to that at some point.